This is VSiN, the sports betting network. This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesdays. We welcome you in to Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We're holding it down for the next 2 hours live from downtown Las Vegas at Circuit Resort and Casino. Lots to get into, so let's dive right into the action as we do each and every day. Time for the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the rundown.
All right, here's the rundown of what we got on deck for you today on Money Moves. We're going to get into the NBA card today, as well as the awards markets. We've got 11 games, coming up in the association, JVT. And we're going to take a little peek into the futures market.
And I've got a 30-1 future that I have added today that we should discuss.
Okay,
I also didn't put it in the rundown, so I want to be a surprise.
That's a true tease, even for me.
Even though if I put the name, I think you'd probably be like, okay.
That's rude. We do 5 games in the NHL.
You think I'm wrong?
Where I have a couple bets coming up. Also, glad I stayed off the Rangers yesterday.
Yeah.
Who, another day at Madison Square Garden, the Rangers can't get a win. 6-1-1 on the road, 0-5-1 at home. Crazy. Even more crazy, what we saw in the NFL trade deadline yesterday. We're going to discuss winners, losers, and line moves. Most notably, the Jets going from 1.5-point favorite against the Browns on Sunday to a 2.5-point dog. And we will play you some sound from the podium in New York. Hear the rationale behind the Jets' decision to move on from 2 of their best defensive pieces.
Yeah, I'm back in. I'm in. I shouldn't say back in. I'm in.
On the Colts?
Colts are the best team in the AFL, the NFL, and the AFC. So let's do this thing. That was the greatest trade ever. Sauce Gardner sounds like he's going to play this weekend. I'm back in. Let's go.
You did more research yesterday, and you're like, actually, this is going to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's more just like, I should be excited about this. This team has stunk for a really long time. At least they're giving it a shot. Who knows what's going to happen? They have the best owner now in the National Football League. Let's do this thing, right? Most well-dressed as well.
Is he?
Well-dressed.
Is she?
Yeah. 100%. Come on.
Most well-dressed? She wears a little too much.
Is that English, by the way? Most well-dressed?
Too clunky jewelry for
Best
me.
dressed?
Chunky jewelry. That's what I meant, not clunky.
When you're rich,
Chunky jewelry.
rich, you got to be gaudy.
Do your thing. Also found some trade deadline prop specials I thought were interesting, if I can entice you into any of those. Plus, Kendall Valenzuela at Fantasy Life is going to stop by in 30 minutes, discuss how some of these deadline day moves as well as injuries might impact your fantasy team, prop market, all that good stuff. But we're going to kick things off talking a little college football because we did have the first set of CFP rankings revealed last night. Lots to take away. Before we react, though, JVT, let me lay out the bones of the top 25 for anyone who missed it. The top 4 seeds, Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Alabama. Then after the top 4 teams hosting home games, at least based on this early 12-team bracket format, would be Georgia at 5, Ole Miss 6, BYU 7, Texas Tech 8, and then rounding out the top 10, Oregon, your 9th-ranked team in the country, Notre Dame coming in at 10, Texas 11, Oklahoma 12. Texas and Oklahoma, however, would be your first 2 out if the season ended today, because Memphis, despite being unranked, would creep in as that 12 seed for the 5th highest ranked predicted conference champ. And Virginia, who is the number 14 ranked team in the country, would make the cut as an 11 seed, being the predicted ACC champ. So that's kind of the bones of how this played out yesterday in the initial rankings.
Yeah. So, all right. There's a couple spots. You said you were intrigued by this. I think there's only like 2 or 3 points that we can discuss out of here. So what stuck out to you the most?
Well, there were a handful of things, but the biggest one, and I think especially considering they're an independent, and I am just coming off of covering the Notre Dame Boston College game, I have been very invested in seeing where Notre Dame was going to be put in this. And the fact that they're number 10 tells me that they are firmly in as long as they handle business and close things out the remainder of the season as they should. And then the disparity between them and Miami, considering they are both 2-loss teams, and Miami actually owns the head-to-head with Notre Dame, for them to be 8 spots below the Irish was another thing that stood out to me pretty quickly.
Yeah, so the Miami thing is pretty, like, that answers, I think, 2 questions. First off, Miami's done.
Yes.
Like, we're out. There's no need to talk about that anymore. The second thing is that ACC's getting 1 team.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. That was one thing that we had brought up yesterday. That is pretty much confirmed at this point right now. The fact that the projected ACC champ is ranked 14th, that far outside, and realistically not going to leap over some of these teams when you're looking at the ability to get in. Notre Dame, like being right on the precipice, I'm with you. You would think that should you move on and just win out, that you'll be perfectly fine. May I present a scenario? Like, is there any situation in which like a Texas like leapfrogs them and pushes them down, and then you remain, like, for example, if they beat any one of the SEC teams ahead of them, and that's like the lone second loss for like an Alabama in an SEC championship game, and then Texas is the SEC champ. That SEC team gets knocked down, but still ahead of Notre Dame, and they don't make it.
So, there's just so many potential ripple effects for what could happen still. Because, to your point, Texas, they have a bye this week, but Georgia the following week. They host Texas A&M in the regular season finale. Like, those are two things that, okay, how is that going to play out? Even Oklahoma, who's after them, they're at Alabama and have Missouri on deck. And so, for the SEC specifically...
That's the scenario, though, right?
Yeah.
Like Texas winning the SEC championship game against Alabama, and that's because I would assume a 2-loss Alabama who loses an SEC championship game is still ahead of Notre Dame.
Yes,
right.
I would agree with that.
So.
But it's also like, do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah.
Because there are other scenarios here in terms of how we might look at this from an odds standpoint. If I can pull this up, for Texas to be in or out, Texas plus 180 to make, Oklahoma plus 350 to make. Also, as you mentioned, the ACC being a one-bid league, don't bet the team to make the playoff when you can do it to win the ACC, if that's the way that you think it plays out. Like Georgia Tech is a great example. They're plus 280 to win the ACC, but plus 250 to make the playoff. Louisville, to make the playoff, is plus 190, but to win the conference is plus 370. Do we think that they're getting in if they're not?
I mean, I guess in theory, Texas, Oklahoma, Utah, Ole Miss, like these teams could all like falter, fail, fall, and then these ACC teams move up by, just filling the vacuum of all these teams losing. So I guess you could still have like a small heartbeat, if you will, right? You're not dead yet. You're just on life support if you're getting two teams in, but it seems highly unlikely that is going to be the case at this point right now.
And now I actually have a little bit of a shift in my feelings in the Big 12. And I know initially before the season, when you asked me the question, how many Big 12 teams did I think get in? Like, I was pushing for 2. I was like the lone believer that there could be 2. Everyone else thought 1. And even as the season went on, it seemed like that was the way it was going to be. But seeing Utah crack the top 13 in this initial ranking, they're 17 in the AP, but 13 here, really does tell you what they think about the way that Utah is playing from an eye test perspective. They don't control their own destiny in terms of making the Big 12 title game. But should they win out, could that actually play in their favor? Like, let's say Texas Tech beats BYU falters again, Texas Tech wins the Big 12, Utah can't make the Big 12 title game, but they run the table the rest of the way. Is that 2 teams in?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, like, here's the thing. I think we're doing too much.
Notre Dame is kind of telling us that eye test is important.
Right. No, of course. But what I think is we also don't know like exactly what they're looking at in terms of like analytics, numbers, data, because the analytics would also tell you that Notre Dame is like one of the best teams in the country. Sure. And so you want to make sure that I think they're in there outside of just the brand. The other problem I think we're running into right now is that we're taking at face value whatever they value here this week is what they will value by the time we get to the end of the season. You know what I'm saying? Like how they're measuring these teams.
They have proven to change their rationale.
100%. I mean, again, so like for example, if you look at this top 12, Texas, Oklahoma, you know what they value? They value head-to-head, right? Texas got the win. Where's Miami again?
18.
Right? 18? How many spots behind Notre Dame, a team that they beat?
8.
Yeah? Okay. So like that's the thing, right? It's head-to-head matters until it doesn't. Strength of schedule matters until it doesn't. And so I think with this, like, it's hard to establish the line of thinking while projecting some of the results down the road when their own standards shift and move throughout the course of one set of top 25 rankings, even in just the one we're looking at, as opposed to the ones we're going to get moving forward.
Another thing that kind of stood out to me was the games at the beginning of the season, maybe not having as much of an impact. And that is something that's never been a true proven like metric or data point for the selection committee, yet every year seems to have an impact. And with Notre Dame specifically, obviously their 2 losses are the first 2 weeks of the season that come down to a single play, and teams that are still, at least in their eyes, top 20 caliber teams, Texas A&M, of course, at the very top of the board at number 3 overall. But what does that make you think of a team like Oregon now and the way that they're playing, and that their best win is a Penn State team that has fallen off? Do we credit them for the fact that, I mean, they basically ruined Penn State's season because they fell off the cliff after that? Do we say that is a good win? Or is it not because of the way that they have performed since? Like, I don't know how the committee is going to view some of those things, because Oregon is a team that they're number 9 in the selection committee. So they're in the field right now. But do you think they're going to win out the rest of the way?
I mean, the committee has certainly set them up to at least bolster their resume. Iowa's 20, who they play this week on the road.
Yes.
USC is number 19.
Yes.
And then Washington's number 23. So and who knows if these teams are those rankings by the time they face them, but they're giving them an opportunity to add about 3 ranked wins on the schedule. Is it on purpose? Who knows? But I think that at the very least,
I even thought that about Pitt being number 24. I was like, you're trying to bolster Notre Dame's schedule?
Well, I was going to say, why? Is Pitt on somebody's schedule? Maybe that we have to bolster the resume there. So at the end of the year, when they win out, you can at least say, yeah, see, look, there's another top 25 team. But no, I think Oregon makes out like a bandit almost, because hey, we're cool. We got our marquee win. We're safely inside of the top 10. As long as we take care of our business moving forward, we're going to be in. We don't have to play an extra game in a Big Ten championship game, assuming that it's Ohio State and Indiana who seem to be on a collision course here. We're going to be fine, and we'll be one of these 8 to 7 to 9 seeds and be perfectly fine. I think, though, as we head to our break here, we're burying the lead to what I think is the most interesting aspect coming out of these rankings yesterday.
G5? Who's it going to be?
Has to be.
Who's it going to be?
Well, I think, and when I say it has to be, that has to be, I think, one of the most interesting topics. Yeah. So allegedly, they just keep ranking teams until they land on their first G5 champ. But we don't know what those other rankings look like. I've got a couple of teams. Obviously, San Diego State. There's a 3-1 out there on a team to make a playoff that might be worth looking at as well. I think that, to me, was the most interesting aspect of these rankings yesterday.
Well, maybe that's something we can discuss a little bit when we get to West Coast bias, because, yes, there is a team that could be in the mix there.
It's not San Diego State.
We've got to step aside when we come back. Jacoby Brissett will start again for the Cardinals this week as Kyler Murray continues to nurse that foot injury. But regardless of health, should Brissett be the guy moving forward? We'll tell you why or why not next.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
I can't stop with this CFP stuff, JVT. I'm very intrigued by it. I can't help myself.
Yeah, you kept saying, well, we have to move on. We're in control.
I guess it is our show.
Yes.
We're allowed to do what we want to do.
I thought Kendall was coming up. I was like, she's early today. Like, no, we don't have to move on. We can keep doing this.
We got Kendall coming up in 15 more minutes. But what we were just talking about in the commercial break, and there are a few other layers I want to hit real quickly before we do move on to the NFL, was the Oregon of it all, because we talked about the next 4 weeks that they have coming up on the schedule, and it's not easy. They're at Iowa coming up this weekend. Mm-hmm. Minnesota, yeah, okay. But then USC and Washington. So 3 of your final 4 opponents are top 25 opponents by the selection committee, which is great in the sense that, as you referenced, you can bolster your schedule and your ranking and the resume and all of that, but also tough in the sense of, like, can they get through that quote unquote gauntlet of top 25 teams? I don't know, which is why I present the question. Do you have any interest in a Michigan to be the 3rd Big Ten team, or a USC whose road losses to Illinois and Notre Dame are by a combined 12 points? They've got a couple good wins against the aforementioned Michigan, at Nebraska. If they can go on the road and win at Oregon, are they not then in position to make that leap? I don't know. Like, how do you see it?
I mean, I think they're going to make it through just fine. I think the more intriguing aspect of this is the things you've already mentioned, is these teams on the outside, Texas, Oklahoma, Utah, and if Oregon falters, them making it into this. I'm
just trying to make arguments, because I'm even looking at Michigan. Yes, you lose to USC and Oklahoma.
Sure.
But if they run the table and then beat the selection committee #1 overall team in Ohio State, and don't say, oh, that can't happen because it's happened before.
Yeah.
Like, does that then both, they're a 10-2 Big Ten team that you just beat the best team in the country? Will that happen? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
I think the power conference stuff will generally work itself out for the most part.
Okay.
I think we have an idea of what these teams are going to look like. You know, ACC, just go win it. Big Ten teams, I think a few of the teams that we're discussing here on the outside, like USC, all these others, Iowa, I don't think they're going to be able to make their way in, because there is a glut of SEC teams that they're going to have to find their way through. And remember, only 2 SEC teams obviously can make a championship game. So there's going to be a couple of these teams with really good records that aren't going to have to risk suffering a loss at an SEC championship game.
Okay.
For me, I'll go back to what we were going out with. how these teams, I'm surprised that they did not tell us the ranking of these non-power teams. If your exercise is, we just keep ranking them until we run into one, and here's Memphis, and it's like, well, wait a minute, what's the gap between the two? You know, if Memphis is, and who knows at this point, maybe they're like 30. Is San Diego State 31? Where's the other ones? How are we handling these teams? Because that's something we should know. Because to the point of what we're thinking about every single one of them. For example, we were talking about the dynamic of San Diego State and James Madison.
Yes.
Let's just assume for this exercise, San Diego State and James Madison are both one-loss conference champions. Do we know where they're ranked? Did I miss that? Maybe I missed it. I don't want to be talking out of my rear end here.
I don't know what that answer would be.
So, they could just be moving pieces around on the back end. We have no idea what's going on because James Madison has a pretty good shot at getting there and being a one-loss champion. Looking at what they have, they're a 13-point favorite at Marshall. They have App State, Washington State at home. By the way, that's the other part. If it comes down to James Madison and San Diego State, and if James Madison beats the Washington State team that beats San Diego State,
then you have that.
Don't you get that edge over San Diego?
Thing.
You had the AP votes, and wasn't James Madison behind San Diego State?
No, they're ahead of us.
They're ahead of them? Okay.
Yeah, so the way that the AP had this shaken out was that Memphis is number 21 in the country, so they are that top-ranked G5 assumed champion at this point. JMU, SDSU, North Texas, and USF were all receiving votes in that order.
Yeah. Because the reason I bring this up, James Madison's 3-1 to make the playoff with a schedule that's pretty manageable.
Yes. And their lone loss, as you pointed out earlier, is at Louisville, who is the number 15 ranked team in the country.
Yes. So the resume could be a loss to a playoff team.
Which was also week 2.
Yes. So a week 2, 10-point loss to a playoff team and a win over a potential, over an opponent that your other contemporary San Diego State lost to.
Mm-hmm. Another thing, though.
Lost in an ugly fashion.
SDSU, odds on to win the Mountain West Conference right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say a JMU trips up or a Memphis trips up, whatever it is. They're 13-1 to make the playoff right now, and they're odds on to win the Mountain West Conference.
Yeah.
So that's another food for thought angle. Memphis, who is in the driver's seat right now, plus 350.
To make the playoff?
Yes. Yeah. So just keep some of these numbers in your back pocket as we go through this. And we'll continue to have this discussion, week after week as these situations start to kind of figure themselves out and unravel. But it's very intriguing to me. That said, some other intrigue we have in the National Football League. And I'm not just talking about Tom Brady cloning his dog, although I have questions. I want to start in Arizona, where it was announced Jacoby Brissett is going to start again this Sunday in Seattle. And there are a few layers to this. Jonathan Gannon said after the Cardinals win in Dallas on Monday night that nothing had changed in terms of Kyler being QB1 when healthy. We thought Murray might have been healthy enough to go on Monday Night Football. He ultimately wasn't, although Jonathan Gannon did say that there could have been a role for him, that there wasn't.
But then he was active.
Which then leads, there's so many, that. Does that not lead you to believe that he must be on trajectory to play this week if he was in a position to potentially play on Monday?
Or he's lying.
Or he's lying.
He's just a liar. Yeah,
because we have the report from Schefter that came out too that said Murray and the Cardinals have consulted multiple doctors about this foot injury and have been told the timetable for recovery is anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. With an increased chance of a setback if it's properly healed, Murray now has more time to heal. And there are suddenly questions of whether or not they're going to put him on IR.
Yeah. Is this just one of those buddy, I think your foot hurts. I think your foot hurts, dude. I think we got to kind of see what's going on here. Here's the real question. Does he play again for the Arizona Cardinals?
Is the contract tradable in your eyes?
I mean, who knows? I never question these teams and what they want to do and how they move off of them. If they want it to happen, it'll happen.
I'm bad with the dollars and cents of it all, so don't ask me. But I can tell you he's in the second year of a $230 million deal. $36.8 million in guaranteed money for next year. And if he's still on the roster in March when the new league year kicks in, that's another 19.5 that kicks in for 27. Mm-hmm. So are you trading for that for a quarterback that has an injury history? And I don't know. So
are you sweating? What's your win total on Arizona?
7.5. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
They're a lot more competent with Jacoby Brissett, but the schedule going forward is pretty insane when you look at, comparable opponents. They're at Seattle, as we just mentioned, about a touchdown underdog there. Home versus your 49ers, home versus the Jags, at Tampa Bay, the Rams, the Texans, the Falcons. There is no gimme games for Arizona. I still think you're in a decent spot, but as we saw on Monday night, your defense is so much more competent, as we see it all the time in football, when your offense can generate points, stay on the field, isn't constantly putting you out there.
Well, because he can actually pass more efficiently from the pocket, and then your receivers then know where the ball is coming from more than Kyler Murray having to run around and scramble and figure it out.
Sure.
I mean, he's obviously unlocked Marvin Harrison Jr. to an extent, who just had career day on Monday night. And you mentioned the advantage, honestly, that they've had in general offensively. Here are the numbers for you. The offense under Brissett in his 3 starts compared to Murray in his 5 this year. Offense averaging 25.7 points per game with Brissett to 18.5, or 18.8, with Murray. 357 total yards per game compared to 288. 256 pass yards per game and 7.7 yards per attempt to 170 and 6 yards per attempt. They both have 6 touchdowns passing, 1 rushing touchdown. Brissett has 1 pick to Murray's 3, and they're converting 56% of third downs with Brissett compared to 40 with Kyler Murray.
And more importantly, they're 3-0 against the spread.
There we go. Now we're cooking with gas.
That's the 3 games, obviously. The 3 games in 4 weeks since the meltdown against the Tennessee Titans.
What do you make of this week in particular against Seattle?
It's hard not to overreact, because these are 2 sides you can overreact to. It's Seattle's an absolute wagon, and they're going to kick the crap out of everybody that they run into. By the way, Darnold's down to 20-1 to win MVP now.
Wow.
The other is this Arizona Cardinals team is so much better with Jacoby Brissett. But I will say, the thing that we should probably maybe kick the tires on this theory, which is, okay, but of the 3 games in which Brissett's played, 2 of them have been against, we'll call them subpar defensive opponents in Dallas and Indianapolis. So are we going to freak out that much? And I mean, say what you want about Green Bay at this point right now, because Green Bay was one of them, right? So do we want to draw this sweeping conclusion that this defense is that much better, this offense is that much better and they're that much more competent? Or can I just say, you played 2 of the bottom 10 teams in terms of success rate defensively?
Let me use your line. Both things can be true.
Yeah.
So I think that's another thing where, we'll see how it plays out, but Seattle's actually been better on the road than they have been at home, too.
That's
so maybe that ends up being another good thing for Arizona this week. By the way, before the line moves, remember the Sharp Plays is already there. They don't just follow the market, they're helping move it. You're not going to outsmart billion-dollar sportsbooks or full-time sharps on your own, but with the Sharp Plays, you don't have to. Powered by advanced AI, plugged into trusted insider sources. They're active across all of the major sports right now. NFL, NBA, college hoops, which is underway. Sharp Plays delivering the edge serious bettors use every day. And they've got the free betting reports, real-time alerts, market-moving insights, all coming directly to your inbox or X feed. Check out sharpplays.com today and stay ahead of the line. We'll have more trade deadline conversation a little bit later on, but also a number of impact injuries to discuss. Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, Tucker Kraft. If you have any of these guys on your fantasy team, or you're looking for ways to capitalize in the prop market on their absence, have no fear. Kendall Valenzuela of Fantasy Life is going to break it all down for us next.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
NFL trade deadline day yesterday had a little bit more excitement than I anticipated. Obviously, the bulk of that coming from the New York Jets, with them moving off of 2 of their biggest defensive pieces in both Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. But there were a handful of other moves that could be impactful. Also, lots of injuries this past week in the National Football League. So to help us kind of make sense of it all, excited to welcome in Kendall Valenzuela on the Progressive Guest Line like we do each and every Wednesday. Senior analyst over at Fantasy Life, SiriusXM Fantasy Channel 87 as well. You can follow her on X at KValenzuela17. And you in particular, I imagine, are pretty excited as a Seattle Seahawks fan to get Rashid Shaheed in the fold in the wide receiver room. And
yes.
I am curious, how much attention do you see him drawing, and what that could then maybe open up for Jackson Smith and Jigba on the other side? Like, how do you view it all?
Yeah, I was happy with it. It was something that Adam Ronis, my co-host, and I talked about on SiriusXM yesterday, where we were asking, okay, what are the moves that you want to see? And I said, I would love to see either one of Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed get moved. I should have made the connection with Clint Kubiak being, from the Saints with Rashid Shaheed before, that maybe they were going to go after him. So I love this. I love this for him. I love this for the Seattle Seahawks. Listen, it's always going to be Jackson Smith and Jigba's world that we're living in. And so I think the rest of the pass catchers for that team will likely just have to to maximize limited opportunities. But that's what we could see Rashid Shaheed do as a field stretcher. He honestly reminds me, or Torrey Horton, I should say, reminds me of him. So I think this is more of a situation where they just didn't have healthy receivers on that team. I think that they're probably going to go the direction of Rashid Shaheed in the offseason, let go of Cooper Kupp, because that marriage just hasn't been really working out this season. So I think they go a little bit younger moving forward, but I think it's a great addition. And I think any piece that you're adding for Sam Darnold, who's had such a great season so far already, is good. And then in fantasy spaces, you just hope that he catches a couple deep balls and falls into the end zone a couple times, because that's where he's really going to give you his value. But JSN's world, I really like, though, that my Seahawks were adding, though, at the deadline.
You kind of answered my question, but Darnold, at least I know, because I've streamed him a couple of times in my main Gate Team League.
Yep.
Like, he's been kind of available. If you have a hole there, is that somebody you're trying to grab for a long-term answer?
Yeah, I think Sam Darnold, at some point we have to look at him as someone that's not just a quarterback streamer option anymore. I was looking this morning before our show, and he's still only 50% rostered. And I think he should be way more rostered across leagues, because he's just proven to us time in and time out that he can put up good fantasy numbers. And so if you're dealing with quarterback injuries, which we know, I mean, if you're still feeling the Joe Burrow injury, if Jaden Daniels went down for you, Sam Darnold should be the guy that you look to next. He had it was 28.2 fantasy points last week. We're not going to get that week in and week out, but he's proven that, the offensive line is holding up for him. His connection with Jackson Smith and Jigba is really good. So he shouldn't be available, but if he is, definitely go and pick him up. He's the top streamer week in and week out, and someone that you could actually look to start moving forward.
Yeah, we were talking about it last segment as well. 20-1 on the MVP board right now. Sixth player option to win MVP. So I would imagine that to be the case. On the opposite side of your Seahawks this week with the Arizona Cardinals, Jacoby Brissett, apparently the guy this week, and what that might look like moving forward as well. Is he someone you should take more seriously as an option?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think when we look at this from a fantasy standpoint, this is an upgrade from Kyler Murray. And I can't believe we're saying that in the year 2025. I've loved Kyler Murray. I've hoped that he would get better, and it just hasn't happened. So I think Jonathan Gannon, their head coach, initially said it's more because of Kyler Murray's foot injury. And I do think there's a little bit of truth to that still. But I think Jonathan Gannon also knows that Jacoby Brissett gives his team the best chance of getting those wins. And so when you look at the splits between them, he's averaging 286 passing yards per game, 7.7 yards per attempt. He's got 6 touchdowns to the 1 interception, and he still adds something on the ground to you. It's not Kyler Murray-esque, but I think you can look to him as a viable streamer. And then if you have Marvin Harrison Jr., he is going to be good to go with Jacoby Brissett in there. And same with Trey McBride. Like last season, when Trey McBride only had the 2 touchdowns with Kyler Murray, we were like, oh, this is funny. This is crazy. He can't find the end zone. And now it's not looking as funny anymore, because you put Jacoby Brissett in there and he's finding the end zone whenever he can. So everyone on this offense is upgraded, but Jacoby Brissett is definitely still a streamer quarterback that you can look to as well.
All right. Well, I wanted to ask about the Sauce Gardner trade, but in a fantasy perspective, so you don't really have to worry too much about Sauce. But an offensive player did switch teams, and that would be A.D. Mitchell. But that also means the deep Colts wide receiver room gets a little bit thinner. So what do you think happens with Indy's pass catchers?
Yeah, so for Indianapolis, I think we've talked every single week. Alec Pierce is someone that I just don't think should have been available this long off waivers. He's averaging, off the waiver wire, he's averaging 10.2 points per game. And so if you can get anything in the flex spot like those numbers for Alec Pierce, I think he's someone that week in and week out, you should be able to look to. And if you need a flex spot start for anyone, but especially, in the coming weeks, he is definitely someone that you can turn to. A.D. Mitchell was in the doghouse because you remember he drop the touchdown pass. And I think, a change of scenery for him is going to be good as well, because that Jets team doesn't have very many pass catchers either. So it's always going to be Garrett Wilson over there. But behind him, you can kind of look to A.D. Mitchell and say, okay, maybe there's a chance here for a flex play. But I think for the Colts as a whole, first of all, I loved this move. I love that they're just trying to go for it all. But I do think Alec Mitchell is probably going to be the most available player that you can go and get off waivers, that in the next couple of weeks with the stretch, we've got 5 weeks till the fantasy playoffs start for usually everyone. He's someone that you should really be looking at.
Let's continue down the line of wide receivers for anybody who is needing a little bit of help, or there are 4 more teams on bye this week as well. Who should they consider picking up?
Yeah, I think, I got a lot of questions about Parker Washington for the Jaguars after the trade for Jacoby Myers. And that is not the landing spot I thought Jacoby Myers was going to go to, but we continue on. I still think Parker Washington has, has good value off waivers, because if this team is suffering the injuries that we think they are, they're not going to be with Travis Hunter this week. He's on IR. Maybe Brian Thomas Jr. is able to come back, but he still has that ankle injury. Diami Brown had a concussion. We'll see if he's back this week too. So I think Parker Washington, if you need a wide receiver, is still a good spot to go and get him, even though they did go and trade for, like I said, Jacoby Myers. I think he's going to impact them a little bit. But when we're looking at wide receivers that you can get that are available, he's one of them that I would look at for sure. And then I already just said Alec Pierce. And then on the other side, if Trey Tucker for Vegas is available, he shouldn't be. He's about 40% rostered. And I don't usually highlight people that are that rostered, but for whatever reason, if someone maybe dropped him before the trade deadline, he definitely holds a lot more value now for this Raiders team. Brock Bowers is always going to be the secure target on that one, but I think Trey Tucker definitely holds value now that you don't have Jacoby Myers on that team.
Kendall, with the Jacoby element of it, we talked about this last week. He wanted out of Vegas. He got his wish. Yeah. If you are somebody that has Jacoby on your roster, how are you feeling about him now in the mix with Jacksonville?
I think it's okay. I was more excited about it than like at my co-host Adam Ronis. I think it's somewhat, lateral when we talk about, the quarterback moves and everything like that. But I think anytime someone who has wanted to be out of their, team for a really long time gets a change of scenery, I do think it can help things a little bit. So I don't think this is a short-term rental either. I think they're going to try and end up getting a deal done with him to keep him there for a little bit longer. But I like the move. It gives him a little bit of new life. So if you had him in fantasy, it's been pretty disappointing so far this season. So you're hoping for, not necessarily injuries, but it does help that the team is really widely injured, that he could maybe get a few more looks than you were expecting before.
All right. You've mentioned maybe a few here and there, but are there any big streaming options on your radar for this weekend?
Yeah, I think quarterback wise, I got a lot of quarterback questions this week. And so I would continue to say if Sam Darnold's available, he should not be available. Please go and pick him up, because he is just someone that shouldn't be out there. I do have a feeling that Marcus Mariota is going to be, the starting quarterback for this team for the rest of the season. They haven't given us a huge update on Jaden Daniels, but we know Marcus Mariota is going to be out there at least, for the foreseeable future. And Marcus Mariota adds, a secure floor because of what he can do with his legs. And so I know his 11.32 fantasy points the last time we saw him wasn't amazing, but he's still given us 20 plus, 16 plus fantasy points. He's got an 11.5 designed rush percentage. So gives you a decent floor where you can say, if I need a quarterback, Marcus Mariota could be that guy. And I'm scared to say JJ McCarthy, but I am going to say JJ McCarthy if you need another quarterback, because this is a better option this week with the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think he was necessarily amazing last week, but I do think he can give you, again, another solid outing against Baltimore in week 10, where you say, okay, I got my fantasy points. I'm good to go.
Real quick, Kendall, we got about a minute left with you. For people who are crying in their beds at night because they do not have Tucker Kraft available to them anymore, what do they do this week?
I know. I'm the one crying as well. I'm just really disappointed about that. It's so awful because he was on his way to such a good season. But I would say Luke Musgrave is the next guy up in that offense. I wouldn't spend too much money. He's not the same talent. He's not going to have the same kind of role. But he is definitely someone that you can go and look at. I think Colston Loveland as well. We might be in a situation where the Bears look at him and say, we spent a really high draft capital on you. We might not be able to put the toothpaste back in the tube, genie back in the bottle, and we like what we've seen so far. Cole Kmet left last week with a concussion, so we'll see if he's able to go through the concussion protocol this week. But I think Colston Loveland, tight end for the Chicago Bears, is definitely someone to be paying attention to and rostering.
Kendall, you're a rock star as always. Thank you so much for the time. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Awesome. Appreciate it, guys.
Kendall Valenzuela, senior analyst, Fantasy Life. Of course, check her out as well on SiriusXM Fantasy Channel 87. You can follow her on X at KValenzuela17 and find all of the work up at fantasylife.com. We got to step aside here. When we come back, loaded 11-game slate on deck in the NBA. A few dogs with momentum, favorites who should handle business, plus the return of this iconic NBA staple. We'll get to it all coming up.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're rolling along here. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. The show is Money Moves. By the way, if you agree or disagree with any of our opinions today, tweet at us as always at MeJVT, at Storm Buonantony, at VSiN Live. Happy to get into it a little bit. And I want to get into the NBA slate today because we've got 11 games upcoming. Before we do, though, yesterday, the New Orleans Pelicans still beat our Charlotte Hornets without Zion. How annoying is that?
Yeah. So yesterday, Hornets, I'm going to double check this. I know at one point when the Hornets gave up the lead, it was a 10-0 run. And I think the Pelicans hit a couple of free throws to make it a 12-0 run to close. But yes, a strong fourth quarter for New Orleans, 29-19 in the fourth overall. And like I mentioned, that run at the end to give them the win over Charlotte. It was as we had talked about, and we had I had the circled and was waiting for Zion, whether or not he was going to play here. But you figured situationally, if there was going to be a spot where New Orleans was going to show up, it was going to be here. Charlotte didn't have LaMelo, didn't have, obviously, Brandon Miller, who's out for a while. You're back at home after a rough road trip in which you got smoked outside of the Clippers game by every single one of the opponents that you had faced. Obviously, you had lost the first 6 games of the season. So if there was going to be a moment, it would be this. And they did show up in an interesting way. I was locked in. This is how much of a stud I am. My viewing habits on my screen, I had Pelicans, Hornets on one screen, and UT Martin, UNLV on the other at one point. It was quite a night of hoops last night. This is what we live for. You know what I mean?
And you had to watch a Rebels loss too. So you had to watch the Hornets and UNLV go down simultaneously.
Yeah, we're going to have to go back to the film there for good old UNLV and see what the hell happened in that game against UT Martin, an 86-81 final. But either way, the whole point here being, if we spin this forward, New Orleans has to go on the road, take on Dallas. One would assume maybe a natural letdown after finally getting a first win in front of your home crowd. Dallas is going to be shorthanded today, especially in the front court. No Derek Lively, no Anthony Davis, no real point guard to speak of, so that's going to be a problem. But this seems like a spot to kind of beat up on New Orleans potentially tonight, which we can talk about in a little bit. But, yeah, tough loss for the Hornets yesterday. Did you see the game? Because I know you want to talk about a couple of other things. Did you see at all what happened between Chicago and Philly yesterday? What a game that was. That was awesome. 113-111. Tyrese Maxey has a great game. He ends up coming out. He has 39 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists on 14 of 26 shooting, hits 6 of 10 3-pointers. But the Bulls outscore him by 13 points in the fourth quarter. They were trailing at one point, Stormy, by about 24 points in this game. Bulls come storming back, end up beating Philadelphia in a big win. Chicago's a 5-0 at home. They're 6-1 on the season. And how about this stat line? Josh Giddey, 29 points, 15 rebounds, and 12 assists on 10 of 19 shooting. And then Vucevic with the big 3 in the corner to ultimately give them a win. That was an incredible game. And what a blown performance from Philadelphia. And the reason why it matters, you lose that game against Chicago. You got the second leg of a back-to-back tonight in Cleveland. We know Joel Embiid's not going to play, and Cleveland's getting healthy today, it would seem, with potentially Sam Merrill, Jarrett Allen, and then we know, as I think you mentioned this to me yesterday, Darius Garland coming back here. That's a brutal loss for Philadelphia last night. Okay,
you're going to be mad at me, but you know what I was thinking when you said, did you see last night in this game the return of Red Panda?
That's right.
Come on!
An NBA League Pass staple.
Finally, she's back. She's healthy. She's working her magic. Unbelievable.
That's a scary moment for the NBA community. When was that? Last year? At the end of last year when she fell off?
She is like universally beloved by everyone. It was a wrist
injury, right?
It was a wrist, yes.
See, I know the injury report.
Glad baby girl's back.
That's
also,
right.
one last thing just on the Hornets of it all, because I was looking at their schedule coming up here with the Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball injuries that they're dealing with right now. At Miami, Lakers, 2 games back-to-back against the Milwaukee Bucks, OKC.
Yeah.
Don't love it.
Might be a while before we see the Charlotte Hornets in the win column again.
All right.
That's why you needed this one.
ESPN National doubleheader as well. Well, if you have YouTube TV, you couldn't care less who's on National today because they are on ESPN. Timberwolves and Knicks and Spurs and Lakers going head-to-head. Which of those 2 interests you most?
Late night game. Let's go Spurs and Lakers. So current number, if you have it
Wemby in prime time.
Correct. So there's many different narrative angles, basketball angles to talk about here. Lakers right now sitting at a 2.5-point favorite. Injury report.
Still no LeBron?
Yes, still no LeBron. But the real question was going to be whether or not Austin Reeves was going to play tonight. He had been playing through a sore groin. He played through it one game, missed another. on the injury report is questionable for this game here today, but according to reports, did go through shoot-around this morning. So always a good sign that you're going to be available for your game, even though you are questionable. Luka Doncic is going to be available. But what I'm really interested in, so if you go back to the game that the Spurs just played, which our own Zach Cohen, by the way, was at against the Phoenix Suns, the Suns did a tremendous job in drawing up a game plan for Victor Wembanyama. Under 10 points, did a lot of great stuff, denied him the ball, doubled him quick on some of the catches. And if there's a coach, this might sound silly given that it's a sport, generally in the NBA, you might not see coaches like fully game plan every single game, draw up specific game plans for specific players. You'll see a lot of that for postseason and whatnot. JJ Redick is a 100% game planner. And so I'm going to be really curious to see if he takes some of the same concepts from what the Suns did against Wembanyama the other day and rolls them out here again today. You know, I keep thinking back to last year. It was near the tail end of the year, if I remember correctly. But there was a game in which the Lakers had played the Nuggets, and they had this great game plan. They were like sending triples at Jokic, got a really big win, whatever it was. And like this team had maybe thought that they were going to, or there was the thought was they were going to be a little bit better defensively, what they ultimately ended up being. The whole point here is if I get Austin Reeves, and I know Redick's going to game plan the hell out of this game, I think the Lakers might be pretty live here to take out Wemby and the Spurs, especially remember, if he's going to start to have to play a little bit more of the facilitator role. Spurs aren't that great of a shooting team. Dylan Harper's out with a calf injury. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox hasn't been playing. They don't really have a ton of guards and ball handling to really deal with Wembanyama not getting as many touches and usage as he usually does. So I think the Lakers will be pretty live here, especially once we get the news that officially Austin Reeves will be available, which we're hoping is the case.
I know we're going to talk awards market and some other futures and stuff later, but you bring up the name. Do you want to go down that Coach of the Year road at all?
We will save it, but I will say this. So sometimes we have a group chat here on the Money Moves program. And I will send you guys things. I won't get responses. Sometimes I send it to you at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't expect anything. Did either of you watch the video I sent you? I sent you homework.
No.
You didn't watch the video?
Which video? I don't know. Sometimes I just miss things.
The Miami Heat video that I sent you guys.
No.
So Norman Powell, this speaks to what I think is actually one of the most interesting games
When did you
tonight.
send this?
Like 3 in the morning this morning.
Okay, well, that's why I didn't. That's why I didn't see it.
So this was on Halloween, but it's an old video, but it's 4:55 a.m. Okay, so it's like 5 in the morning, so it wasn't even that bad. But there was a Norm Powell and Bam Adebayo when the Heat.
I just saw the worm. I didn't see that you sent something in addition to the worm. Okay.
So I would say you should watch that video maybe a little bit later.
All right.
Either way, it's a really good breakdown of how the Heat are running their offense now.
Okay.
So we've talked about this a couple of times, how the John Morant connection doesn't work because they have one of the former Grizzlies assistants there, and they're taking a lot of principles from his offense. So it's essentially like this read and react type offense that has been great. And the Heat have changed the way they played offense. They're running way more. They're first in pace. Their half-court pace is way up. They're not running as many pick and rolls and as many screens. And it's caused them to be a really strong over team. And their offense has been very good. However, today, now they play Denver. It's the last of a road trip. It's the third game in 4 nights. And I wonder if maybe we've gone a little too far. Total was as high as 242.5 this morning. That's the number I bet under. Market hasn't moved that much. It's 241.5. But this has been a strong over team because the market hadn't really adjusted to Miami's new offense. But I'd be curious to see if that keeps up here on the road against Denver, given the situation. It's a really fun game. I can't wait to watch this one tonight.
Anything else you want to get off your chest last couple minutes?
I'm kind of tempted to bet the Memphis Grizzlies today.
No, after you just talked all that trash.
So Zach,
after you just talked all that trash about John Morant and everything, you're going to the well.
It's such a high number. The Rockets are laying 8 on the road against Memphis. And in talking with Kelly Bidlin and Zach Cohen this morning, going back and forth, Kelly made a great point, which is, preseason, what are we talking about here between these two from a number standpoint? It's not this, I'll tell you that. And some spots are up to 8.5. I think Memphis deserves to be downgraded for sure. But 8.5 because John Morant's like throwing a fit, that seems like a lot. I know the Rockets have been good. I haven't done anything. I'm just saying it's very tempting. But of course, when you get burned by a bad team so many times, you can't just keep going.
And I imagine people don't want to bet on a player who's lost his joy in the game.
That's right. That's what they told you, right? Is that what he kept saying about the team?
That's what they told you. What? Why would they say that if I didn't say anything?
That's right.
That's, yeah. That was the worst media availability I've ever seen. That said, as we're talking NBA, you mentioned Zach Cohen. He's got articles up every day on vsin.com breaking down some of his favorite angles on the slate, as well as the prop betting opportunities. And right now at vsin.com, you go vsin.com/NBA props. You get access to the Opta AI projections, where you can look at certain props, some angles. You can see the projection compared directly to DraftKings lines to help you find value. You're going to get unlimited access to that page and every page up at vsin.com at vsin.com/subscribe when you join us on a full-time basis. Don't miss out. The time is now. We still got a couple special deals going on, so you can come join us. We've got to step aside here. When we come back, resetting for hour 2 of the program, the NFL trade deadline was busy yesterday, and we heard from some of the big dogs making the decisions on the podium yesterday. We'll lay all of that out next on Money Moves.